This rose garden really is a masterpiece. It's gotten even more awesome than it was 6 years ago. You're so lucky to have this in your yard. Are you kidding? For me, it just makes a longer walk to get to the harbor, which is a real pain. That's a pretty luxurious worry. Getting to say hi to the roses every morning before school. So awesome. You must get late after saying hi to so many roses. Shame about ENG though. I hear her stomach gets upset easily. Apparently, it's probably her intestines that are weak. She always gets diarrhea. Oh. You shouldn't say something like that about a lady. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I forgot marshmallows are what comes out of a girl's butt, right? So, ENG got sick and the marshmallows turned into syrup. Dio Madonna, Butler. Yeah, that's just too disgusting. George and Jessica slammed a knee and a fist right into either side of Butler's gut. Whack, smack-tad. The smack-tad was probably the sound of his knee hitting the ground as him falling over. Normally, Butler possessed the good sense you'd expect from an 18-year-old man. However, it seems that his reunion had brought him back to the mental age he had been 6 years ago. And bit by bit, Jessica and George realized that they were also returning to the way they've been 6 years ago. This charming chat was being observed by Natsui, gazing through an open window in the hall. Madame, Krauss-sama is searching for you. I'll go in just a bit. It isn't even lunchtime yet, and I'm already tired. The sparks have been flying between them and Eva's group only a few moments earlier. The others had pounded on Krauss and Natsui over and over to get Kinzo out of his study. Apparently, they haven't been fully tricked at last year's family conference after all. There are no problems with father, I assume. Correct. Leave it to me. Shannon and Kanon are also fully aware of today's arrangements. Kumasawa is a good liar, so I'm not worried about her, but I'm a little concerned about Dr. Nanjo. I get the feeling he's bad at hiding things. Leave that to me. I intend to support Dr. Nanjo from nearby as much as possible. It's very reassuring to have you there. It really helps a lot. Without your strength, we wouldn't be able to succeed. I am honored by your words. Don't worry, the locked room barrier of the study is perfect. As long as the barrier remains unbroken, no one will be able to expose Kinzo's secret. Yes, I understand. Still, you heard that conversation in the parlor just now, didn't you? It seems that some considerable suspicions were aroused last year. Terrible toxin has accumulated and is being spread all around. It seems that this year's conference really will be crucial. We might be able to overcome this year somehow, but there is such a thing as pushing our luck. It's probably best to assume that next year won't be manageable. With this much of the anti-magic toxin filling up the place, it will probably be difficult to preserve Lord Goldsmith magic for yet another family conference. Who are you? Oh, no need to be surprised. This man serves as my head furniture. Greetings, Madame Natsui. My name is Ronove. It is a pleasure to meet you. This man's reliable. He's also helping to guard the locked room barrier. Is that so? I am Mushiromi Natsui. I thank you for your cooperation. Of course, madam. I will be aiding you from the magic world. Please, rely on me. In that case, I guess I'll introduce myself next. Hi, Riche. Long time no see. Oh, Gap! It's heartening to see that you're here as well. Well, I only came to have some fun. If you need an extra hand, let me know. Nice to meet you, madame. This is the first time I've said hello, but I've always been right by anyone's side. Gup here is quite the prankster. Remember the headache medicine you dropped on the floor of your room and lost as you were getting dressed? Gup was the one behind that. Whenever she gets something small down something, whenever you set something small down somewhere but can't find it later, it's always a good idea to suspect that it's one of her pranks. Long ago, she used to tease me all the time. Is that so? In any event, this is the Ushiromi I mentioned. As long as you are here, you will obey us. You understand, correct? Of course, we understand. Think of me as a Genji of the magical world, and please give me order whenever you wish. I'm pretty sure I know how to be a good guest. I won't let the landlord lose face. You can count on Ronove and Gap. However, the magic world and the human world are two different sides of the same coin. I understand. Of course, I will do all I can in the human world. Let's work together to protect Father's secret. Vabbè, qua comunque, insomma, se non fosse già stato abbastanza chiaro, qua te lo dicono, perché Ronove è la versione magica di Genji. This happens every time. We won't get anywhere until the next day. Well, sure. October 4th is like a preparation turn for me. If you don't feel like doing anything, why don't you just sit around until October 5th? I'd call you after the first 6 die. Of course, that was very irritating. That was a very irritating way to say it. The fight wouldn't start until the crime occurred. However, waiting for the crimes to start would mean turning a blind eye towards the murders of the first twilight. In other words, it would be like the same as being content with the fact that 6 people would die. Did you know? They say that in chess, the player who moves first is twice as likely to win. Although that can change as the tactics of the match progress. Don't they say that the second player has a much better chance at that draw? Even I know what the first strike win means. Then, what are you trying to say? This is why you're so incompetent. Seriously, are you listening, Butler? There is a mystery which can be solved even on October 4th. Do you know what that is? You don't mean... No, but... Well, watch and see, Butler the incompetent. I have a general idea of what these witches are talking about. I've tried solving it several times myself in the past, but I still haven't found anything resembling an answer. On the contrary, I still can't even understand why that riddle exists. That's right, the reason it exists. Why did Beato prepare a riddle like that in the first place? We all discuss it together from time to time in past games. However, I've been avoiding thinking about it under the assumption that there's no point in investigating the riddle unless we can solve it. This time, I would change my viewpoint. I shouldn't just focus on the obvious parts, like the truth of the riddle and how to solve it. What's more important is why that riddle was set up in the first place and displayed for us to see. That's what I should be thinking about. And the one proposing that riddle is Beatrice. Even if I can't solve it, I should be able to try and figure out what Beato was thinking when she showed it to us. Although this time, I'm turning the chessboard over. The witches keep calling me incompetent. Let them laugh. My enemy isn't them. I'm continuing our match, Beato. Ecco che arriva il piovo. Oh, seems like it's finally starting raining. Sheesh. I wish I could keep the downpour limited to the inside of my heart. The people in the parlor noticed the raindrops had started to drip down the window. So now we have nowhere to run until the family conference ends. The same thing goes for Nissan and his accomplices. I won't let them escape. Can be certain of that. The cards we are holding aren't bad. Nissan is just bluffing. I'll make certain that he surrenders. Well, the thing about a deal is you don't go in trying to beat the other guy. You get a pitfall ready, praise him a bit and convince him to stand on it on his own accord. Hideyoshi-san is right. You pressed him a little too hard just now, Eva-san. That was perfectly reasonable considering it's Nissan we're dealing with. Has Rosa fallen asleep? She was complaining about how early she woke up this morning. Well, guess there's nothing wrong with taking a nap. There's a chance we might be forced to spend all night like this. Getting a nap in now is probably a smart idea. Out of consideration for Rosa, who had fallen asleep on the sofa, the others quietly left the parlor. Rosa slept unaware. After telling Maria to just stay where she was left, stavo per dirlo, adesso è il momento in cui Rosa lascia fuori Maria. After telling Maria to just stay where she was after that tantrum over not being able to find the rose, Rosa slept, unaware that the rain had started to fall. The rain poured down as though he had been saving up for this moment. Of course, Maria noticed that the rain had started falling and was soaking her to the bone. However, that just made her even more stubborn. Unable to find the poor, slightly unhealthy rose that she herself had marked, she just couldn't stand having that search be interrupted by something like the rain. So, the more the rain fell on Maria, the more stubborn she grew, and she wandered around and around the rose beds. As she did, from behind her back came a patter-patter, the sound of approaching footsteps. Then whoever it was stepped in a very small puddle, making a light splashing sound, and Maria finally heard. However, even the slight distraction that sound caused made her feel irritated, and Maria ignored it despite having heard.
Konnichiwa.
Hello. Maria turned around, bewildered. After all, that voice was one she didn't recognize at all. On this sealed-off Rokkenjima, that voice belonged to no person she knew. Graf-sama, Madame, I was looking for you. Something important has come up. Krause and Natsu have been privately discussing what should be done next in a deserted corridor of the third floor. Genji had searched everywhere for them. What is it? It must be something more urgent than a few sheets getting wet by the rain. What is it? Has there been some sort of blunder? A short while ago, someone came to the mansion claiming to have drifted here after an accident at sea. Krause and Natsui couldn't help but go wide-eyed and looked at each other. This was the first time they have ever heard of someone coming to this island uninvited. Someone drifted here? Is that true? Poor thing. Treat this person politely, like a guest. What is happening now? Dr. Nanjo is performing an examination. He hasn't finished yet, but from what I could tell by looking, the drifter seemed tired but uninjured. That's good. Natsu and I are having an important conversation right now. We will come to check on this person when we are finished. Please tell this drifter that we want them to feel at home. Certainly. Genji bowed deeply and started to leave, but Natsui called him to a stop. Genji stopped walking and Natsui jogged up to him. Genji, is this drifter a man? No, she is a young woman, about the same age as Milady. A woman? I see. Very well. Back to your work. The parlor of the mansion was bustling. The adults gathered, concerned about the well-being of the sudden guest. Well, if she was able to walk all the way to the rose garden by herself, her life probably isn't in danger. It always had to be prepared. It's probably all thanks to the life jacket. Without that, she might have drowned. What kind of girl was she? Older or younger than George, Jessica-chan? She was younger than Jessica-ne-chan. She was wearing a life jacket and a swimsuit. He looked all tired out. Assuming she washed up somewhere near the harbor, that must have been a bit of luck amid disaster. It would have been terrible if she landed on the opposite side of the island. Still, you have to feel sorry for her. With this weather, the boats won't be coming. I imagine she'll also be stuck on this island all day tomorrow. At that moment, the door clanked open and everyone looked in that direction. Would anyone like some tea? It was Goda and Kanon, with the latter pushing a serving cart laden with a tea set. Goda understood well that doing a little extra at times like this would earn him points. The relatives, hungry for information, crowded around Goda. Goda offered Kanon to serve the tea and became the sole object of the relatives' attention. Goda-san, how's that kid doing? Does she seem well? I don't know about that. But there is no need to worry. Dr. Nanjo is giving his full attention to taking care of her, and Kumasawa and Shannon are with him. Please, do not worry. Why not relax with some black tea for now? Come, Kanon-san, quickly, serve it. Why do I have to? Kanon knew that this tea was just Goda's way of earning points, so he lined the cups up with a slightly sullen air. Oh, I'll help too. It is all right. You can just wait there, Maria-sama. I wanna serve tea too. Didn't you talk with Dr. Nanjo? Did he say something? Yes, when I met him a short while ago, he said that there weren't any serious external wounds, and from what I could tell at a glance... Just as Goda had successfully captured the gazes of all present and was about to start talking knowledgeably on the subject, Nanjo returned. Of course, Nanjo instantly became the center of attention. Kanon turned his back on Goda, who seemed downhearted.
南條先生
Dr.
どう
Nanjo,
なんですか
how
容
is
体
her
は
condition?
大丈夫そうなの
Does it look like she'll be alright?
皆さん
Not to
ご安心
worry,
を
everyone.
大丈夫です
She is fine.
怪我は何もあり
She
ま
had
せんで
no
した
injuries at all.
だいぶ疲
It
労している
seems
よう
that
です
she's
が
quite worn
今夜は
out,
特
but
に熱を
there
出さな
shouldn't
け
be
れば
anything to
何
worry
事もな
about
いでしょう
as long as she doesn't develop a high fever tonight.
ならよかったわ
Oh, that sounds good. That's good
お
to
医者
hear.
様はいても
We're
病院
lucky
はない
enough
も
to
ん
have a
ね
doctor, but this is no hospital. Everyone was relieved to hear that the girl was in good health. When Nanjo gave the more detailed results on the examinations, concluding by saying that she was young and should therefore be fine, everyone who no longer fell under this description nodded in assent.
やっぱり船は怖い
What's really are
落
scary?
ちる落ちる
Uchiru.
バトラーの言う
Butler
通
was
りだった
right.
マリアちゃん
Maria-chan,
Sorry,
let not
Butler.
tell Butler-kun about this.
ああ、
Oh,
奥様、
Madame
旦那様。
Kraus-sama! Goda, who was feeling sorry for himself and handing out cups, called out in an excessively loud voice. Apparently, he was that desperate to get everyone's attention.
客人の具合はどうだね
How is the guest?
はい、
Yes, sir.
別状は
Her
ないとのこと
condition
で
is
ご
not
ざいます。
serious.
そうですか
I
それは
see.
よかった。
I'm glad to hear it.
今はどちらに
Where is she now?
熊沢さんとシャ
I
ノンさんが
believe
お風呂に
Kumasawa-san
案
and
内したは
Shannon-san
ずだ
were showing her to the bath.
それから服を見
And
立て
they
ると言
said
ってまし
that
た
they would get her some clothes afterwards.
ならすぐに
In
来る
that
だろ
case, they will probably arrive here soon. Everyone,
親族会議の
this
日で
may
は
be
あ
the
るが
day of the family conference, but we have a guest brought here by an unfortunate
招
accident.
いた客人で
She
はないが
wasn't invited, but
どうか
I
歓迎
want
して
you
や
all
って
to
ほしい
welcome her.
意義などある
Who
わけ
could
もない。
disagree with that?
賛成や。
I'm all for
同
it.
じくだ
Same
女の子
here.
には優しくしろ
Didn't
って
Mom always tell us to
おふくろも
be
言ってた
nice
ぜ
to girls?
あなたはそれを
You
人生
take
の
that
モットーに
line
しすぎ
way
よ
too far.
ジョージたちも
It's
呼んだ方がいい
probably
わね
best if we call George and the rest over here
全
too.
員で挨拶
Let's
し
all
ましょ
greet
う
her together.
そ
Together.
んな
I'm
Guys,
not so
let's
sure.
go to the
Wouldn't that
jungle.
just make her feel more timid? Eva stood up and made a phone call to the guest house. At that moment, they heard the sound of a knock, followed by Genji's voice.
源氏でございます
It is
お
Genji.
客様
The
が
guest
お越し
has
になられ
arrived.
ました
At those words, everyone fell into silence and the people who had been sitting stood up straight. Genji came in first, opening the door slowly, then moved off to the side, bowing deeply and urging the guest forwards. The guest had Shannon and Kumasawa following by her side. And though she looked at a large amount of relatives waiting for her in the parlor, she didn't seem overawed by the slightest. Overawed in the slightest. Just this single point showed that this girl possessed a dignity appropriate for a guest for a guest invited in by the Ushiromiya family.
フルド様
Furudo-sama,
ご紹介
allow
申し
me
上げ
to introduce you.
後宮家当
This
主
is Ushiromiya Kraus, the representative of the Ushiromiya family head.
ようこそ
Welcome to
事
Rokkenjima.
故でいらしたと
Though
はい
you
え
arrived due to an
あなたは
accident,
当家の
you are a
客人だ
guest of the
歓
family.
迎します
We
よ
welcome you.
どうぞ
Please make yourself at home and relax however you please.
ありがとうございます
Thank you very
自
much.
己紹介申し上げ
Allow
ます
me to introduce myself.
フルドエリカと申します
I am called Furudo Erika.
この度は
My deepest apologies for disturbing you members of the Ushiromiya family
誠
like
に申
this.
し訳ございません招かれざる客人であるにもかかわらずの歓迎心より感謝いたします
I am truly grateful for the warm welcome I have received despite my status as an uninvited guest. There was a general sigh of acceptance. The clothes she had been lent were probably Jessica's formal wear from long ago, but the composure of her introduction gave the impression of a dignity by no means inferior to the clothes she wore. This girl's name was Furudo Erika. She looked slightly younger than Butler and Jessica, but her composure and mannerism were what anyone would have expected from a high schooler, almost as though she was a well-to-do family's daughter. Oh, wait a sec. Who is this person? With someone incompetent like you as the main character piece, the game wouldn't get anywhere. That's why I've placed myself there as a piece. Well, it's just a bit of a bonus. Even in a closed circle, it gets boring to see the same faces every single time, right? Quit messing around. This piece doesn't exist on Beato's game board. Beato and I won't acknowledge it. This is Beato's game board, right? If Beato refuses, then I'll think about it. And Beato's opinion? Beato was unable to answer. Lambda Delta grinned as though in triumph. Wanna try complaining about the rules and stepping down from the game? Isn't that the favorite move of you mystery people? If there's even a tiny element that goes against your expectations, you have a tantrum and totally stop thinking. Don't worry, I'll make a detective proclamation about this piece. Detective proclamation? I proclaim that Furudo Erika is the detective. The detective is not the culprit. No proof is needed to show this. In short, there is absolutely no need to suspect this girl. With this guarantee, you can theorize the same way as you did. As you always did, even now that she's appeared as a human piece, right? That's Nox's 7th commandment. It is forbidden for the detective to be the culprit. There was an exception clause in the original, but for this game, the detective isn't the culprit, has been proclaimed in red, and you don't need to consider the exception. I hate word games, so I'll say it in red too. Furudo Erika is not the culprit. Repetition requested. Furudo Erika has no influence of any of Beato's games before now. Sure, I respond. Furudo Erika has no influence on any of the previous games of any of Beato's games before now. She's nothing more than an extra character who appears for the first time this round. She does not exist in the worlds before this one, nor does she influence them. In that case, what happens to the number of people on this island right now? Of course, it's +1 over the previous number. But don't worry, it has only increased by 1 person, Furudo Erika. Besides her, the number of people on this island is exactly the same as it was in the previous games. At that time, the loud sound of people running through the corridor could be heard. It was Butler, George and Jessica who had come over from the guest house after being called here by Eva. They immediately spotted a guest they didn't recognize and their eyes went wide. But who are you? Oh, guest. She came by She came by Uchiru. Huh? Genji-san. Who is this person? This is Furudo Erika-sama, a guest. Furudo-sama. This is the daughter of the family, Jessica-sama, along with her cousins, George-sama and Butler-sama. Nice to meet you. I'm Ushiromiya Jessica. Hello. My name is Furudo Erika. I am very pleased to meet you. Though Butler, George and Jessica didn't have a clue what was going on and were utterly bewildered, they each introduced themselves. Isn't that convenient? This way the number of people is clear. The people in the guest house have joined up with the rest, and now all the pieces except for Kinzo, all of the humans, have gathered in one parlor. Looks like it. In other words, the number of people in this parlor now equals to the number of people on this island. There were supposedly 18 humans on this island, but since grandfather was actually dead, that became 17. And now that one piece of Ben Castle has been added, The number of humans on this island has returned to 18. Ma scusa, c'erano mica anche Kumasawa e Shannon insieme? Sono arrivati? Ah sì, sono arrivate assieme, è vero. Giusto, giusto. Ai, tra parentesi, che cioè, tra virgolette, quindi penso il butler del gioco, glanced around at the humans in the park. Ah no, forse, vabbè, uno dei due butler. The guest, Furudo Erika. And behind her, Kumasawa-san and Shannon-san. Chan. And of course, and on to the side was Genji-san. Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsui were welcoming the guest. Goda-san immediately started showing off, and Kanon-kun was being unsociable, wearing his usual blank expression. There was Dad and Kirie-san, Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi, Auntie Rosa and Maria, and Dr. Nanjo. And on either side of me were George Aniki and Jessica. This is everyone, the true number of people on this island at the moment. All of us are Ushiromias, so please don't feel obligated to call us by our family name. I'm George. I'm Butler. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much, George-san, Butler-san. I'd be pleased if you would call me Erika. Nice to meet you, Erika-san. Erika was welcomed like a guest, and it was decided that she could borrow the bedroom next to the cousin's room on the upper floor of the guest house. In front of all the relatives, and she has seemed dignified and a bit stiff. However, as she talked with George and Jessica, her expression began to soften gradually, and so the detective Furudo Erika was placed on the game board. Quando torna Andrew leggiamo anche la descrizione di Erika. I'm surprised that Jessica's old clothes suit her so well. Kumasawa made a decision on her own to use milady old clothes. Please forgive her. The clothes Erika was wearing were Jessica's old formal attire. Though the guests possessed a dignity that would put many adults to shame, her body was still physically similar to a middle schooler's. Jessica's old clothes fit her perfectly. Not to worry, they match this guest perfectly. If she likes them, I should think it would be alright for her to keep them as a sign of friendship. Certainly. Thank you very much. Have you contacted the police and her family? Yes, they seem to have been quite distressed. By the way, our guest really did have an accident, right? She said that she fell from a boat as it was returning to port. Is there anything to back up that claim? I checked with the Coast Guard. It seemed that she fell from a rear of a pleasure boat, unnoticed by the others on board. We don't know the exact location she fell from, but it was probably somewhere near this island. How foolish to be out boating with such a bad weather forecast. All the same, is it really conceivable that she nearly drowned in the nearby waters and drifted to this island? It is not impossible. Tales of drifters washing ashore exist on several of the islands around this area. I believe it's likely that there was an accident. This is in the middle of a typhoon. There is no place on this island where it would be possible to land a boat. Genji had already figured it out. Natsui almost certainly suspected that this mystery guest, who had arrived during the already high-stress family conference, might be a pawn in someone's plot. Therefore, Genji had already checked to make sure that the accident was real, that Furudo Erika was a real name, and that there was nothing suspicious going on. Very well. My husband has ordered you to roll out the red carpet for her. Make sure that there are no blunders. However, you understand, don't you? Yes,
親族会
we
議
will
は
not
一
allow her
切近づけ
anywhere
ません
near the family
夕
conference.
食後は
After dinner, I will
Guest
see that she
house お一人
retires
願い
to
で
the
す
guest house.
客人をお父様に
Make
挨
sure that they
拶
don't
させろ
start
というよう
talking
な
about
流れにも
letting
な
her
らない
meet
よう
father or
よく
anything
注意
like
する
that
のです
either.
もちろんです
Of course,
心得てお
I
り
will
ます
keep that in mind.
ほう、
Hmm.
フルドエリカ
Furudo Erika,
こ
was
の
it?
六軒島に
It's
来
rare
客と
for
は
guests
珍
to
し
come here to
い楽し
Rokkenjima.
ませてくれ
She
そうで
looks
は
as
ない
though she'll be entertaining, don't you think?
ベルンカステル教の
She
駒
is
でしょう
probably Lady Bencastle's
人
piece.
間のルールに
Though
従
she will
う
follow the rules of humans, the player is a
プレイヤーは魔女です
witch.
侮ることは
We
でき
can't
ません
underestimate her.
問題ない
There is no
仮
problem.
にベルンカステ
Even
ル
if she
教本
was,
人であろうとも
even if she were Lady
人間である
Bencastle
以上
herself, she is a human, so she is no match for us.
何しろガ
After
ー
all,
プ
we have Gap with us.
人間はガープに
Humans
絶対
certainly
に勝
cannot
てる
win against Gap.
ありがとう
Thanks.
でも買いかぶりすぎは
Still,
良
魔
くない
not a
わ
good idea to overestimate
魔
yourself.
女の定義は
The definition of a witch does not only imply the ability to use magic.
ですが
True,
ジョーカーで
a
あり
joker and the eye of a a joker and the eye of a typhoon. That is what a witch is.
この六軒島で
There is to.
魔女と名乗
I'm
っ
the
ている
one
の
who
は
gets
こ
to
の
call
我ら
herself a witch on this
黄金の
Rokkenjima.
魔女にして
Only
無限の
I,
魔女
the golden
ベア
witch,
トリーチェ
an
のみで
endless
ある
witch, Beatrice.
ベルンカステル教名
Let us see how good Lady Bencastle next
Dono
piece
tedo.
after NJ is.
じっくりと
I
観覧させて
intend to
もらおう
watch very carefully. Oh, molto breve questo capitolo. Molto breve, insomma, sono tipo 40 minuti, però rispetto ad altri è abbastanza breve. È stato abbastanza breve. Witch of Miracles. Sono le 7 di sera adesso. Erika's seat was the lowest one in rank, giustamente. In other words, it was at the inferior end of the table. Since Kinzo's seat at the high-end table was empty, if you turned the whole thing around, it sort of looked like Erika was the host of the dinner.
それでは皆様
Well then,
本
everyone.
日の晩餐を
I
始
would
めさ
like
せ
to
ていた
begin
だきたいと
tonight's
思います
dinner, if I may. After Goda's announcement, dinner began with the almost customary applause. It was finally the beginning of the dinner orchestra conducted by Toshiro Goda. Sitting at such a majestic dinner table was no everyday thing for these people by any means, except for those in Kraus' immediate family. However, they were all used to it and acted as though this was completely normal. Again, if anyone was to be surprised, it should have been Erika. And yet, she showed no surprise at this dinner, and acted with composure, blending in with everyone else. There wasn't even a sliver of fear that one might expect from someone who had wandered here like a lost puppy.
不思議な子ですね
What a mysterious
後ろ
child.
に
She doesn't seem the least bit flustered over the Ushironya family grandest dinner of the year.
最近の子は肝が
Kids
据わって
these days have nerves of
嫌いじゃない
steel.
の
Definitely not something I dislike.
フルドさんは
Furudo-san, are you
こういう食事に
accustomed
は
to
慣れている
meals like
んですか
this?
大した落ち着き
I'm
ようだ
impressed that you looked so composed.
ほん
Oh,
まや
no
な
kidding.
随分
She's
手
a
慣れ
real
た
pro.
わしなんか未だ
Heck,
に
I still get
次は
confused
どの
about which
フォー
fork
クを
I'm
使えばいい
supposed to
か
use
判
next.
断するんやであーこっちや
Yeah,
ったら
was it
それ
this
とも
one
こ
or
っちやった
this
か
one? Erika had been gracefully eating her hors d'oeuvre, non lo so, without showing any confusion over the line of utensils in front of her. Hideyoshi started joking around with her, gripping a fork in each hand. Of course, a president of a company in the food service industry like Hideyoshi would obviously know his table manners. However, thinking that Erika must be nervous over this dinner, he had intentionally spoken with a comic tone of voice.
外側から順に使うだけですし
You just have to start on the outside and work your way in.
面倒だったらお
If
箸を
that's too
頼め
much
ばいい
trouble,
んです
then just ask for some
日
chopsticks.
本人ならお箸で
Any
す
self-respecting Japanese would use chopsticks.
お箸はいいですよ
Chopsticks are
こ
wonderful.
れ一膳あれば
Just a
ど
single
んな料
pair,
理でも
and you
大将
can
で
handle
きます
any kind of food. As soon as she began talking about chopsticks, her eyes started glittering. The smile she now showed for the first time was far different from the dignity she had shown before, and more like something you'd expect from someone her age. But you use a spoon for curry and rice at least, wouldn't you?
丼に盛ればいいんです
Simply put it into a bowl, donburi
牛
style.
丼スプーンで食べる
Is
人い
there
ますか
anyone who eats gyudon with a
い
spoon?
ませんよね
Of course not.
日本人なら誰
We
も
Japanese must unwaveringly, unfailingly, unflinchingly use chopsticks.
というわけでゴーダさん
So, Koda-san,
すみませんが
if
お
you
箸を
please,
お願いし
I
ます
would like some chopsticks.
私が日本人と
I'll
して恥ずか
show,
しくない
I
食
shall
べ
show
方をご
everyone
覧に
the
入れてみ
proud
せ
and
ましょう
proper way for a Japanese person to eat.
ところで次のお料理は何で
Incidentally,
すか
what is the next next dish?
それが困ったことに
Unfortunately, that would be
次は
soup.
スープでございまして
As she pretended to shrug, Erika winked at everyone. Of course, no one was laughing at her. She obviously knew that the soup came after horse d'oeuvre in a full-course meal. Furthermore, Erika had even noticed that she had performed a little too perfectly, creating a sense of tension that led Hideyoshi to think that she was nervous herself, and that this was why she had tried to break the ice. That was why she started behaving a little childish and light-hearted, acting out the part of a guest and enjoying an harmonious dinner. Pretty soon, not only Kirie, but everyone else also caught on. Even though she was an uninvited guest, she was apparently worthy of participating in the Ushiromiya family dinner. Smart kid. Did she really just came by here by coincidence? Are we sure she is an illegitimate child of Nissan he's secretly invited to today's family conference?
賢く場を和
It
ますセン
seems
ス
she's
もあ
not
るよ
only smart, but she knows how to brighten the mood
マ
too.
ナーも見事じゃ
And
な
her
いか
manners are simply
あ
wonderful.
んな子が娘
It
だった
wouldn't
ら
be bad at all to have this girl as a daughter. Sì, Jessica è lì però, coglione.
それはひでえ
That's
ぜ
pretty
ジェ
cruel.
シカちゃんの
Appunto, where does
達成がな
that leave Jessica-chan?
ひどいわ
That's
ルドル
mean,
フ兄さ
Rudolph
ん
Nisan.
どうしたんだいジェ
What's
シカちゃん
wrong,
頭
Jessica-chan?
痛かい
Headache?
私の
I
評
can
価
feel
が
my
全然
reputation
下がってる
dropping by
気が
the
するぜ
minute.
こりゃ
Come on, as the daughter of the family here, you can't let this
お
stand.
前も
Try fighting back with the table manners and dignity Aunt Natsu always teaching you.
対抗してみろよ
I wanna see. Wanna see table manners?
ほら
Hey,
はしゃぐのは
making
マ
a
ナー違反
fuss
だ
is
よ
bad
さ
manners.
あさジェシカ
Come
ちゃん
on,
お手
Jessica-chan.
本を見せて
Show
あ
us
げ
how it's done.
お
Sure,
もちろんだぜ
no sweat. Jessica straightened up so much it looked like someone had poked her in the back with a pole. She had good posture, but it somehow lacked elegance. She looked, well, kinda like a triangle ruler. She sat at attention with her gaze fixed straight ahead, trying to bring her food to her mouth despite this, and failed miserably. Dad, who was sitting next to her, suddenly realized that something was up.
どうしたんだジェシカちゃん
What is it,
腹
Jessica-chan?
でも痛えのか
Your stomach hurt? Jessica turned bright red. Ah, sorry, I can't help myself. We left our heads off. Jessica protested, still bright red. Aunt Natsu scolded us for not behaving ourselves. In the end, no matter how much we tried to smooth it over, we were who we were. We couldn't act like we were anything else. Still, that laughter really did help us to relax. We had been so concerned about the guests getting nervous that we had grown even more nervous ourselves. The lively chatter spread from where we were sitting at the center of the long table to both ends, and ultimately the dinner went even more smoothly than usual. With some delicious cheese and coffee, our precious meal came to an end. Goda was unanimously acclaimed and was praised for his skill by all present. After a short period of harmony following the meal, it was decided that we would return to the guest house. Normally, dinner tended to have a very dark atmosphere about it, and the adults would often move right on to the family conference with the same dark atmosphere. However, because this year's dinner had been oddly peaceful, everyone decided to take a break, the adults included. After eating, taking a bath, and relaxing while watching TV, I wonder if they'll gather again in the mansion in the middle of all of this rain and resume their high-tension family conference. I'd rather not think about it. Auntie Eva seemed to get very worked up, trying to convince the rest to start the family conference right away, but it didn't look like many people agreed with her. The meeting had probably come to a close for the night. Since they had guest house duty, Goda-san and Kumasawa-san were chosen to guide us to the guest house. It must be tough for Goda-san. Even after making and cleaning up such an extravagant dinner, he also has the midnight shift at the guest house. I heard that Kumasawa-san, old as she was, would be going to sleep soon. It seemed that she had been assigned to the servants' quarter in the guest house. Please allow me to guide you all to the guest house. Erika-sama, your room has also been prepared. Thank you very much. Why not rest a bit? Are you sure you feel alright? Oh, that's right. I had totally forgotten, but you nearly drowned and floated here, didn't you, Erika-chan? It's probably best if you take it easy today and get to bed early. I'm perfectly fine. On the contrary, I'm so nervous and excited that I doubt I could get to sleep. Then, let's play. Let's all play together. Play cards. Maria latched onto her, giggling. This lack of restraint, particularly to youth, was very much like Maria. But for now, we really should be thinking about Erika's physical condition. Maria, why don't you play cards with us? Erika-nechan says she's tired. Oh, I like cards. Please, let me join you after I had a short rest. Who is that? As she passed through the lobby of the entrance hall, Erika stopped walking. When she saw what she was looking at, the rest of us also stopped. Oh, that is the Golden Witch, Beatrice-sama. The Golden Witch. What are you doing, brats? Get your asses in gear, we're off back to the guest house. Dad, Kirie-san, Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, and Auntie Rosa all came over. The guest house party had all gathered. However, Erika's gaze was captured by the portrait of the witch, and she simply stared at it for a while. Yeah. Supposedly Dad has a stash of hidden gold worth 20 billion yen, and the hiding place for all that gold is written on this epitaph. Perhaps because it was too early for them all to disperse into their individual rooms, the relatives who had returned to the guest house were all gathered downstairs, continuing their chat. The topic was the witch's epitaph, which Erika had taken an interest in. It really is a fascinating riddle. He displayed it in a place where anyone could see it as a challenge to our intellect. I adore challenges like that. Whoa, I didn't expect you to be into this, Erika. Do you like solving riddles or something? Well, they're interesting, don't you think? These kinds of challenges. I have no doubt that Kinzo-san intends to use that epitaph to choose his successor. When she said that, the adults froze and slowly turned to face Erika. Why do you think that? Auntie Eva spoke with a coaxing voice. Though there had been whisperings between the relatives every now and then that the person who solved the epitaph riddle might inherit the family headship, That had been nothing more than a wishful thinking, since such a thing had been never specifically stated. And yet, though she had only read it once, the outsider had already reached that conclusion. How had she come to it? No, that wasn't the problem. If you solve the epitaph, you can become the next head. She wanted to establish this not as wishful thinking, but as an outright fact. So they closed in around Erika, asking why she was so sure. It's somewhat common for extremely rich people to relinquish their wealth to a person who solves a riddle. Furthermore, Kinzo-san didn't publish this epitaph in a newspaper, but displayed it within the mansion. That means the riddle is intended for the people in this mansion. You're right. Since it's inside the mansion, there's no way for someone who can't enter the mansion to solve it. So, that means grandfather has been challenging the people in this mansion. Good. Well thought. Just by the simple fact that the epitaph is inside the mansion, it is possible to figure out that much. At first, this Furudo Erika girl had seemed to be the fairly silent type, but apparently that wasn't the case. When she grew excited about being challenged to a game of wits, she became much more talkative than imagined. I see. Well, it does make sense that an epitaph inside a mansion would be there so the people in the mansion could read it. But can you really be so sure that the one who solved it will be given the headship too? If the treasure gained by solving the riddle had been something small, I would not even have considered it. That's right. The hidden gold is worth 20 billion yen. You could consider it the wealth of the Ushiromiya family itself. Inheriting that would be tantamount to inheriting the Ushiromiya family itself. In other words, the riddle contained within the epitaph that indicates the hiding place of the gold is nothing less than a way of selecting the practical successor of the Ushiromiya family. The idea that the person who solved the epitaph would be chosen as the next head was something that had been floating around between a few of the relatives for a while now. However, since it had never been stated specifically that they had thought of it as nothing more than an optimistic dream. And so they had abandoned all consideration of the aspect and left it as a grey area. Erika, who had declared in clear terms that this uncertain part was, in fact, true. If one of the relatives had said it, the others would have thought of it as merely an optimistic dream. However, when declared by Furudo Erika, a complete outsider, those words seemed more credible than they were otherwise would have. Everyone remained silent for a while, slowly considering what those words implied. All it takes is the presence of that epitaph. And a deduction like this becomes trivial for Furudo Erika. Your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? Sorry to butt in, but my father is the successor to the head. It doesn't matter who finds the gold, because just finding it doesn't make someone the head, right? Jessica thought the treasure hunting part of the epitaph was fun. However, she couldn't help but let her expression grow bitter when they started talking about undermining her father's position. Visto che ci sono, leggiamo anche Erika. Furudo Erika fell from the pleasure boat Eternal Maid 2, mid-cruise in the waters near Rokkenjima. She washed up on Rokkenjima on October 4th, 1986. The Ushiromiya family welcomed her as a guest. She managed to drift to the island unharmed thanks to several miracles, including the life jacket she was wearing. Comunque sì, lei ha la faccia molto da bimba, si è detto che è poco più giovane di Jessica, Però non si vede che è più grande di Maria. Se dovessi azzardare un numero, direi 16 anni. Se Jessica ne ha 18, non mi sembra 12-14 anni. Secondo me ne ha più 16. La butto lì. Però questo è ininfluente, perché tanto è un pezzo di Ben Castle, quindi può averne anche 2, sarebbe Ben Castle lo stesso. However, she couldn't help but let her expression grow bitter once they started to talking about undermining her father's position.
私の推理から演繹
As
する
far as I can
金
deduce,
城さんは
Kinzo-san does not seem to wish for Krauss-san to have a smooth transition to inheriting the headship. Why is that?
莫大な財産を持つ
Becoming the head of the
吉野
Ushiromiya
家は
family, with all of the vast wealth it entails, would mean gaining a deal of influence in a political
ならば
sense.
本来
Ordinarily then, the succession should be rigorously conducted so that no element of doubt is permitted to creep into the equation.
そうね
That's
う
right.
ちの人の好きな
It
戦国武
happens a
将の
lot in those
話でもよ
stories
く
about Sengoku period military commanders that my husband loves,
後継ぎ候補が複数いたりすると大抵
where there are multiple candidates for the successor. It usually results in a family dispute.
そうやな
That's right.
だからトラブルを
That's why it's important to
未然に防ぐために
clearly specify a
しっかりと
successor
後継者を
so that
指名
you
して
can
おくのが
avoid
大
any
切だ
trouble.
時には競合する後継者を
Sometimes there even a purge of all the
粛清することさえ
competing successors. Si comporta come il classico personaggio del detective che intuisce e deduce sempre cose come l'epitaffio. Lei al momento ha preso sempre tutto quanto ha parlato 4 volte, non è che stiamo parlando dell'interesse del suo personaggio, ma per il momento ha sempre detto la cosa giusta nel momento giusto, nella maniera giusta. E ha letto una volta l'epitaffio e ha capito qual è il suo significato. Quindi è sicuramente un personaggio molto potente sotto il punto di vista logico. No, Lampada non può avere 19 anni perché Jessica ne ha 18 e hanno detto che è più giovane di Jessica. Comunque. Even the Sengoku commander Hideyoshi admired Toyomi Hideyoshi made his son-in-law Hidetsugu commit seppuku, but it was rumored that he might have done this to make Hideyori, who was his real son and born after Hidetsugu, his true heir. In other words, naming a successor was a way to make it known that to the world that a given single unique person would be acknowledged by everyone as the successor, and a way to remove any chance of another person becoming an opposite candidate.
グッと
Good?
まさにその通り
That's
です
exactly correct.
あのような秘文
The
の
only
存在は
purpose for an
クラウス
epitaph
さんに
like
次
that
期当主の肩
would be
書き
to
を
cast
危ぶ
doubt
ませ
on
るしかありません
Krauss-san's position as successor to the head.
つまり
In other
金蔵
words,
さんがクラウ
if
スさんに
Kinzo-san wished for
当主を
Krauss-san
円
to
満に
become
継
the
承
head
させ
without
たいと
any
願うな
trouble,
ら
he would have no reason to go out of his way to display something so dangerous for all to see.
そうね
Yes,
チェス盤をひっくり
if you
返せば
flip
確
over
か
the
にそういう
chessboard, you certainly could say that.
当主は継承す
It
る
would
け
be れど
odd
odd if he handed over the position of the head normally, but wouldn't hand over the 20 billion yen in gold except to the person who solved the riddle. Giving up the title of the head but only giving the 20 billion yen in gold to the person who solved the epitaph. You really couldn't call that passing on the headship in the truest
そ
sense.
ういうことです
So, there you
以
have
上
it.
の推理によ
With
り
this logic, I cast doubt upon whether Kinzo-san truly acknowledged Krauss-san as his
操るこ
successor.
とができるわけですただ秘文がそこに存在するだけで
All it takes is the presence of the
フルダ
epitaph,
エリカは
and a deduction like this becomes
こ
trivial for Furudo Erika.
いかがでしょうか
But your
Jessica-san?
fault, Jessica-san.
なんだよそれ
What the hell is that?
何が推理
That's not logic.
ダメだ
That's bullshit. You're just making it all up. Jessica let her emotion lay bare and glared at Erika. Erika, on the other hand, looked exactly calm with an expression that said, "The truth is the truth." I see. It looks like table manners aren't the only way this Erika girl is fitting for the Ushiromiya family. It really seems like it seems she really is like the family, even in ways that it wouldn't been better if she wasn't. Okay, okay, take it easy, Jessica. And Erika, let's leave it at that for now. Well, we can put all of this about the successor to the side for now. Anyway, you slices, there's no way that father's big questions for us. It's 20 billion yen, Maria-chan. What would you use it if you found it? Ooh, the golden land isn't just gold. It's a sacred place. Uncle Hideyoshi persisted with his fake laughter, attempting to force the mood to improve. Everyone else tried to go along with him, but Jessica's mood didn't get any better. So, Erika-chan, would you like to go at the epitaph's riddle? Yes, my little grey cells are itching to get started, so I would like to start solving at once, if I may. George Aniki skillfully turned the conversation around. Just like the time she had made everyone laugh in the dining hall, Erika looked about with gleeful eyes and jumped at the chance. I like it. Well, since Erika-chan seems so interested, let's all try and solve it together, just like last year. I'll make some coffee. Raise your hand if you want some. Not for you, Maria. You won't be able to sleep. Maria, mi immagino Maria ipercaricata di caffè che fa... salta dappertutto, tipo rimbalza sulle pareti. I wanna drink black coffee. Don't you get excited? No, don't they get you excited? Riddles like this. I adore them. Erika said that and smiled. Even though she must have known that she'd ticked Jessica off and made the atmosphere sour, she just smiled nonchalantly. See? There's a mystery you can solve even without wanting for the crime of on October 5th. I did try to solve it a bunch of times, but you didn't have a clue, so you gave up and stopped thinking, right? It pissed me off, but I didn't have a good counter for that. After all, I don't get the epitaph at all. I don't even know what the beloved home of old means, much less the parts about the Sweetfish River and the key. Thinking that a few more hints would show up if I waited, I kept on waiting and just stopped thinking. Have you figured out an answer on your own? Because I'm about to solve it. What? This is where Ben solved the riddle of the epitaph. I'd expect no less from the Witch of Miracles. If a riddle is solvable, she can solve it without fail, regardless of the difficulty. How many years did it take to solve this one? How rude. I only fished through a few hundred fragments. You really are terrifying. You better not have cheated by suddenly saying the answer in red or something like that. Don't worry, just like you, I follow the rules as a player. Well, shall we begin? It's cramped here. Why don't we talk at sea? At sea? Okay, don't get squeezy. Don't get queasy, Butler. What do you mean, sea? Right after I thought the world had turned pitch black, I was struck by a strange floaty sensation. It must have felt like suddenly having the floor drop from under you, sending you into a bottomless pitfall. When I looked, I saw the two witches and I had been thrown into a pitch-black universe. This space was cloaked in endless darkness in every direction, and it felt like an infinite expanse filled with countless glittering objects. Instead of a universe, some people might have likened it to the depths of the oceans, to the ocean where countless glittering fragments drifted. Didn't she tell you not to get queasy? If you want the concept of gravity, just create it yourself, okay? Come on, calm down and look at us. Come on, don't we look like we're just fine? Believe that your feet are on the ground and that you're being controlled by gravity. If you do that, you'll find your equilibrium. That's right, the two witches were standing normally, as though their feet were planted on a transparent piece of glass. I was the only one floating about like someone in a rapidly plummeting elevator. When I saw that they were just fine, I started calming down, figuring that there was no need to be scared. Then, just as Lambda said, I gritted my teeth and kept telling myself that there was a place to stand here, and that I had to calm down. Very good, very good. What's your name? Shiromiya Butler. Who else do I look like? Okay. No matter what, you mustn't lose your will, emotions, or form. After all, this is the ocean. If you lose your purpose, you'll fall into the depths of eternity and become a scrap of ocean seaweed. Be careful. I didn't get what Lambda Delta was saying, but I tried to calm down for the time being. I seemed to be regaining my balance the more I calmed down. Gradually, that weird floating feeling like I was falling forever began to disappear. It still felt strange, like struggling to stand upright at the bottom of a deep pool, but it was much better than before. Then, let's begin. I'll weave a fragment for solving the riddle of the epitaph. Vediamo che cosa sono questi fragments. Ben Castle opened both of her hands. Then, like a planetarium, all of the fragments throughout this empty space began to spin, leaving tails behind them. The expression planetarium might have been more fitting than I thought. Multiple fragments were tied together by gold lines, and what looked like constellations zoomed by rapidly, one after another. It almost felt as though we were dashing through space at an incredible speed. Then, with tails of light drifting behind them, several bright glowing fragments swirled around Ben Castle. It looked almost like she had created her own solar system with her as the sun. That solar system surrounding Ben Castle grew to a radius large enough to swallow us up. And every once in a while, one of the satellite fragments zoomed right past me. This isn't one of... Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. When those fragments passed right by me, it felt as though some kind of memory welled up inside me. I could feel it in my gut. These fragments were probably like crystals of memories. They aren't memories. They are fragments of worlds. Well, I guess this might feel like memories to you. Then let's begin. Let's start with this fragment. One of the satellites in the solar system was slowly sucked in towards Ben Castle as it orbited around her decade. It drew a spiral as it approached there and came to rest on on the palm of her outstretched hand. Then it shone brightly, painting over the world with pure white. Episodio 3. The beloved home of all definitely won't betray our expectations. The only past that father held dear was his years as a boy. I remember that. This is when, in the third game, Auntie Eva was just about to solve the riddle of the epitaph and was thinking it over with his witching cider or whatever. That's right. And from these thoughts, she made her way to the correct answer. In other words, these fragments show a vital hint for reaching the truth. In other words, it means that this theory is not mistaken. So you're saying we should assume this beloved home of old isn't a metaphor or anything like that, but the place grandfather actually spent his youth? That's right. And at the very least, it isn't Odawara. Odawara is definitely where father was born, but I don't think this home father loved was Odawara. I believe all of us siblings are thinking of the same place. Yes, this probably isn't Odawara. From what I've heard, he had a very fun time. From what I've heard, he had a very fun time as a youth. That's right. Auntie Eva and her siblings said that it wasn't Odawara. But not only that, it looked like everyone had a good idea where grandfather's home was. Right. And annoyingly, the actual location isn't spoken of in any of the fragments. Of course. If I told you that, there'd be too many hints. If a riddle isn't hard, then there's just no point to it. Oh, that's a hint too. Just where is this home of grandfathers? We can't even start if we don't know that. You mean you couldn't start, so you stopped thinking? Since it had to be a place where he could have lived, the number of possibilities is limited. Well, this is the toughest part. You were the witch who could certainly solve any riddle that can be solved, weren't you? So you took those limited possibilities, in other words, everywhere on the earth, and considered every single piece of land that grandfather might have lived on? That would work too, but that way no amount of time would be enough. So I needed to take some more hints into consideration to wring out the answer. Didn't you say it yourself? You said it didn't have to be a river with water flowing down it. If the word sweet fish is too complicated, why not forget it forever? Think of a river. A river. Linking it with family tree wasn't a bad idea. Try thinking about how to link a river with something else along those lines. A sweetfish river running through his home of old. However, this river isn't truly a river. Have I thought of something else? Something that could be linked with a river? Sure, but if it isn't a river, then why the sweetfish? Think. A river that runs through the home of old, but it isn't a river with water running down it. Something that can be likened to a river. Behold the sweetfish river, running through my beloved home of old. Eva knew where his home of old was, so she ignored the sweetfish hint. However, since we don't know where it is, this could be a hint for us. I racked my brains too much over the sweetfish river. The sweetfish part didn't really matter that much at all, did it? Oh, that isn't true. It was an excellent hint, if you ask me. Well, of course, maybe there was no need for it to be sweetfish. Una cosa, io dico qua, se fossimo giapponesi, stessimo parlando giapponese in questo momento, vi vorrei tipo aiutare, avrei fatto anche qualche cosa specifica nelle live pre-episodio 5 per cercare di risolvere l'epitaffio prima dell'inizio della seconda parte di Umineko. Ma siccome è una cosa molto complessa e bisogna almeno avere qualche conoscenza di giapponese per capirla, non ho voluto insistere affatto. Quindi adesso noi la leggiamo, cerchiamo di arrivare a una conclusione, ma se non conosci il giapponese la vedo un po' difficile da risolvere. What are these sweet fish? If the river isn't a literal river, then of course sweet fish probably doesn't mean that kind of fish that swims. Yeah, and on top of that, Rosa tossed it aside, saying that the sweet fish weren't that significant. On the other hand, Eva said it wasn't important for them to be sweet fish, but it was still an excellent hint. In other words, the sweet fish is a key to make you think of something else. If that something is a different word, but a word that sweet fish makes you think of, then Eva's line about how it probably didn't have to be sweet fish makes sense. From these thoughts, Auntie Eva formed some theory, went to the archive, looked through some kind of book, and verified that she was right. In short, Auntie Eva formed some theory about the true nature of this sweetfish river running through his home of old. Then, she opened a certain book to determine whether that theory was correct or not. In other words, this theory was something that could be verified through some kind of book. Also, after she figured out what the Sweetfish River was, she figured out the rest of the riddle very quickly. Good thinking. The epitaph continues on, saying as you travel down it, you will see a village. At that point in time, Eva haven't yet solved the 3 lines starting with this one. What is village? What does it mean? If there's a village, is there a village if you go down this river? All those pieces that hadn't been able to understand at all were right before my eyes, starting to snap into place all by themselves. I couldn't even remember to close my open mouth, my throat grew completely dry. Is it really alright for this to be the answer? Really? Really? So, if we figure out what the Sweetfish River running through my beloved home of old is, that leads us directly to understanding the as you travel down it, you will see a village stuff. And then you get the key to the Golden Land. Correct. And we know that because even Eva didn't know what that village meant until she checked the book. Damn it. Just what is this book? But this isn't 6 characters at all. I'm absolutely sure that this is the answer, but this doesn't reach 6 characters at all. Did you start thinking again? In that case, think of a way you could read it with 6 characters. If you can't think of one, then research it. There has to be an answer. You must not doubt that. If you can't believe it, why don't you cry yourself to sleep and then just give up and die forever? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six characters. I found it. This is the Golden Lands. Key. Sì, mi sembra fosse Ayu, sì. Then Eva found the key to the Golden Land. Yeah. And this key was some kind of word, number of string of characters, 6 characters long. That's it. If we know that the key through identity is 6 characters, all the meaning of this first twilight changes drastically. The first twilight sacrificed the 6 chosen by the key. The 6 chosen by the key. 6 characters. In other words, it means on the first twilight sacrifice the 6 characters chosen by the key. This key points towards a specific group of 6 people. No, we should say it points to a specific group of 6 things. If this doesn't mean a literal command to offer sacrifices, for example, it could be an anagram. An anagram? Do you mean a word game? That's right, Kirie-san theorized this already way back then. On the second twilight, it says those who remain, which means that at the very least, that something has to have a finite number of characters. You could read it like it's telling you to continue with the remaining characters after the 6 characters are removed. In other words, on the first twilight, we take a list of characters that's longer than 6, kill the 6 that are the key, and then do something with the characters that remain. That's right. But like Kirie said, what should we kill the characters from? We don't know this longer string of characters that we are supposed to be killing from. On the first twilight, kill the 6 characters that are the key. On the first twilight. In other words, by the time we reach the first twilight, some string of characters already exists. But the first twilight has only 4 characters. Are we meant to read it differently? If we read it in English like grandfather would, like maybe like the first twilight or something like that. Like first night. Good. The idea of yours is quite insightful, Butler-san. We can interpret the 6 sacrifices chosen by the key as a string of 6 characters. I think that's a clever way of thinking outside the box. After all, key-shaped objects are not the only type of keys. I also thought of the possibility that it's an anagram. Come to think of it, you did say something like this before, but in that case, what do we remove the 6 characters from? That's right, since we are removing 6 characters from it, whatever it must be at least 6 characters long. How could we read it in a way that gives us more than 6 characters? If we follow Father's sensibilities, I guess it probably is English after all. If it looks like we're getting stuck, why don't we move on to the second twilight and look for hints? Those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close. We can probably think of those who remain as the remaining characters after the first have been removed. In that case, what does it mean by 2 characters that are close? I get it, so that's what this is about. For example, let's take the following list of 9 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then let's say that the 6 characters offered as sacrifices are 1, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We erase the aforementioned 6 characters from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and get 2, 4, 5. So 2, 4, and 5 are left. So what? 4 and 5 are close. Yes, I get it. So the 2 who are close, it means... Yeah, there's a gap between 2, 4, but 4 and 5 are right next to each other. They're the 2 who are close. good
お見
though.
事です。
Well done, Butler-san.
引き裂くという意味
I
が
can tell
4と
that
5を
I
潰すという
can't tell
意味
whether
が
the tear apart means to eliminate 4
4
and
と5
5
の間
or
を
to
開け
put
て
a
いる
gap
のが
between
分
them.
かりかねます
But I
が、
think that's a
そ
good
の着眼が
observation.
良いと思います。
なら
Then what do you think about the third twilight? Those who remain shall praise my noble name.
文字遊びである可
Since
能
there's
性
a
が
good
高い
chance that
以
the
上、
epitaph is a word game, there's a possibility that this part is also a word game of
残され
sorts.
た文字は
The characters that remain shall praise my noble name.
難しいね。
It's
ど
tough.
ういう意味だ。
What could it mean?
どなたかわかる方
Have
は
any of you figured it out?
私は多
I
分
think I have.
何教
What
えな
is it?
さいよ。
Tell me!
これもアナグラム
Is this also an anagram?
またしても
Good,
ヒット
once
バ
again.
トラさんは
Butler-san, you're a pretty flexible thinker.
アナグラムっ
By
て
anagram, you mean playing with letters,
と
right?
いうことは。
That
つまり
means I would guess that they mean that I would guess they mean that you can make some kind of word by changing the orders of the remaining letters.
だな。
Yeah.
とすると、
If so, I might be getting ahead of myself a bit with this theory, but I'm going to assume the original list of characters that the first Twilight is taking off is 11 characters long.
またしてもお見
Well
事
done again.
私も同じ見
I
解で
reached
し
the
た
same conclusion.
どうして
Why is that?
どうして11文字
How
なん
can
て
you be
言える
so
んだ
sure that there are 11 characters?
生贄を一人殺すという
Killing
の
a single
は
sacrifice appears to mean eliminating a single character.
第二の番の引き
If
裂
we
きを
interpret the tearing apart of the second Twilight to mean adding a gap between two characters,
11文字
then we would expect there to be 11 characters
こ
in
の引き
total.
裂けが
If
2
tear
文字を
apart
潰
means
せ
to
という意味
eliminate
な
those
ら
two characters,
13文字になる
then
と
we
想
would
定され
expect
ます
13.
なぜなら
The reason for this is from the fourth Twilight to the eighth Twilight, the word kill
5回
appears
殺すとい
5
う記
times.
述が出るからですそして
And then, on the ninth Twilight, it's written that none will be left alive.
魔女が蘇る
If we ignore the part about the witch reviving for now, I figure it meant that after eliminating 6 characters on the first Twilight, separating the characters that are close and then eliminating 5 more, there should be exactly none left. So that makes 6 plus 5, 11 characters. If tearing apart the two who are close on the second Twilight means to kill both of them, then 6 plus 2 plus 5 equals 13 characters. There's a chance that the word symbolizing the first Twilight has 11 or 13 characters.
実にお見事です
Wonderfully done.
私
It's
と
exactly my
同じ
logic.
バトラさんもどうや
It
ら
looks like you were gifted with the same little great cells as I was, Butler-san. Quit it. Just doing what comes natural. Hang on. What the hell? My piece is pretty damn clever, isn't it? There's no room left for me to make theories.
ああごめんな
I'm
さ
sorry
い
about
バトラ
that.
はこの時
You weren't around at this point, so I control your piece for you.
私の操らせてもらったわ切れ者っぽくていいでしょ
Isn't it nice how sharp I made you seem?
あんたは
You look so much smarter when Ben's playing with you.
プレイヤーは降りて
Why not step down as the player and concentrate on being the piece instead? I joined in on this game on October 5th, after the first few murders, so up until that point that piece called me was being controlled by Ben Castle, the player, which makes it possible for Ben Castle to present a reasoning through my mouth. The game I'm watching now is nothing more than a replay of a part that's already ended. Quindi praticamente ci sta Butler controllato da Ben Castle e Erika che è praticamente Ben Castle in forma di pezzo. Ci sono due Ben Castle nel gioco praticamente e si stanno facendo i complimenti a vicenda. However, that's probably good enough for now. This Ben Castle Sama had gone out of her way to solve the epitaph for me, so I'll watch closely for now, and I'll try to find out what it means. Lambda Delta let it sleep herself just a few seconds ago.
そりゃそうでしょ
Of
それを
course,
教え
if
てあ
I
げちゃっ
told you
たら
that,
ヒントが過
that'd
ぎ
be
ちゃう
too
わ
many
難
hints.
易度の高い
If
謎
a
でな
riddle
きゃ
isn't hard,
意味が
there's
ない
just
んだ
no
から
point to it.
あらいけない
Oh,
こ
that's
れ
a
もヒン
hint
トになっ
too.
ちゃうわね
This theory about grandfather creating the epitaph in order to choose a successor isn't bad at all. Erika and Bencaster's logic is extremely reasonable, but that's only if we assume grandfather was the one to create it. He was probably alive at the time the epitaph was displayed, but of course, he is already dead by 1986. And in the games up until now, Beatrice threatened us repeatedly with letters, saying that only one way to survive was to solve the epitaph and trying to force us to solve the riddle. In other words, it was Beatrice's intention, her hope, that we would try and solve the riddle of the epitaph. The epitaph is so confusing that in most cases the relatives never seriously tried solving it until the threatening letters started to arrive. That's why Beatrice fired the starting pistol, which makes us take a go at it. Why is Beatrice carrying out grandfather's last wishes? Like the theory proposed in the first game, is she really grandfather's confidant, following his orders even after his death, and trying to select the successor to the riddle of the epitaph instead? That would mean that Beatrice really is grandfather's trusted underling, and exactly the family's alchemist she called herself in that letter. After grandfather's death, Beatrice would have managed the 10 tons of gold and taken the title of alchemist, without ever embezzling the gold. She entrusted it all to the epitaph's riddle and waited for a human fitting to be the successor to appear and solve it. And if that human didn't appear within a set time limit, that meant game over. Certainly, when Auntie Eva solved the riddle in the third game, she became the only survivor and automatically the final head of the Ushiromiya family, inheriting everything. Up to this moment, no one has ever survived past October 5th except Auntie Eva, the one who solved the epitaph. That was the only case where Beatrice let anyone survive. Is Beatrice's loyalty to grandfather the thing that drives her? Did grandfather give her some terrible order to kill everyone if the epitaph isn't solved? Or she is so loyal that she faithfully carries that out? I must not stop thinking. Don't stop thinking. Don't just think of the riddle itself. Think about why it's significant. Why is Beatrice telling us to solve the epitaph? Why did she create such a confusing epitaph for us? If Beatrice is making us try to solve this epitaph that we have no real chance of solving, and by some luck chance a miracle occurs and someone is able to solve it, what significance does that have to her? I don't know. What this miracle would be worth to Beato. Anyway, until we figure out the first Twilight, we'll have to give up on the rest. We tried looking at it from several different angles, but in the end we got stuck there and made no further advances. Sleepy Maria. Maria let out an extra large yawn. This caused several other people to yawn. We have been using our heads so much that everyone had gotten a little itchy. Jessica, who had been silent and looking displeased for the whole time, quickly stood up. I'm going upstairs with Maria. We'll watch TV or something. Oh no, I'll go up too. Hey, why don't we all play cards upstairs? When George proposed this, Maria completely forgot about her big yawn of hers and started jumping around, insisting that she wanted to play cards. Ho letto i tuoi commenti, Giove, dopo ne parliamo. Judging by the clock, it would soon be 10 at night. It was already about the time you normally take a bath and get ready to sleep. For sleep, even the adults seemed pretty wary from traveling. We decided to continue this later and we went our separate ways. Will you play with us too, Erika-chan? cards.
お気持ちだけで
I
結構です
appreciate the
客
sentiment.
人の分も
I
わきまえず
overstepped my
ちょっ
bounds
と
a
仕切り
little,
すぎました
forgetting that I am a simple
今夜は
guest.
おとなしく休もうと
I'd
思い
like to
ま
take
す
it easy and rest for the
自
night.
分が遭難者
I'd
である
almost
ことを
forgotten that I was
すっかり忘れ
just
て
in
い
an
ましたから
accident.
まったくだ。
Seriously,
とても溺れて
you're
る
in
とは
just
思えない
you're in such high spirits. It's hard to believe you almost drowned.
若さね
That's you for
で
you.
も楽しかった
Still,
わ
I enjoyed
あ
it.
なたのおかげ
I
で
think
推理
we've
が
taken a
一層
big
進んだ
step
気が
in
す
our
る
reasoning thanks to you.
もし私が
If
黄
I
金を
find
見つ
the
けたら
gold, I'll let you have about a million years worth.
せめて気前よく
Can't you at least offer the poor girl 100 million?
結構です
There's really no
私
need.
に興味がある
I'm
のは
only interested in
謎解
solving
きだ
the
けですの
riddle.
でそれではこ
Well
れで
then,
失礼しま
if
す
you'll excuse
お
me,
やすみなさい
good night.
おう、お
Yeah,
やすみ。
night.
あら、バトラ君
Oh,
の上に
you
行
aren't
か
going
ない
upstairs, Butler-kun.
俺は
I'm
ちょっと
getting a
面
bit
白く
interested
も
here.
う少しここで
I'll think
考えを
things
まと
through
めてみます
here just a bit longer.
第一の番を
If
示
I
す
can
文字に
figure
さえ
out the
分か
list
れ
of characters that marks the first twilight,
一気に道
I'll
は
bet
開
the
ける
road before me will open up all at once. Everyone went up to the second floor one by one. Only Auntie Rosa remained behind, cleaning up the coffee cups everyone had been drinking out of. Curious and some other offered to help, but since Auntie Rosa had refused this, she was washing them all alone. Since I bet I've been treated to such a delicious coffee, I decided to help too. It wasn't just doing it because I felt obligated. I wanted to keep discussing the epitaph with someone. The first twilight. The first twilight. God.
ローザおばさんは
Auntie Rosa, have you thought of some list of characters over a word?
ある
さあ、
No,
私には全然
don't have a
で
clue.
も
But
第一
instead
の
of the
番じゃな
first
くて
twilight,
第10
is
の
the
番は
10th
ちょっと気になっ
twilight
たか
that
しら。
bugs me.
第10の
The
番
10th
何
twilight?
ですか
What about it?
黄金鏡って単語何度も
The
出てくるで
world
しょ。
Ogonkyo, the Golden Land, appears several times, right?
出てきますね
Yes, it
なぜ
does.
か第
For
10の
some
番だけ
reason,
旅は
on
終
the
わり
10th twilight
黄金の鏡
alone, when the journey ends, it
里ね
says you've reached the home of gold. Read Ogon no Kyo. No, sorry, Ogon no Sato.
黄金の里へ至るだろうっ
The
て書
home,
かれているの。
kanji, Kyoto, Sato, is separate
どう
out.
してここだけ黄金の
I
里
can't
と書かれ
help
てい
but
るの
wonder why this is the only place where it's written like that.
本当だ
You're right.
確かに
No mistake.
他はみんな
Everywhere else it
黄
says
金鏡って書かれてる
Golden Land. Even though all the rest are written Golden Land, the 10th twilight is the only one where it's different. The home of the gold is written instead. I wonder if the word home, Kyoto, Sato, adds some kind of special meaning.
しかし
Still,
バトラ君
you
と
and that
あの
Erika-chan
エリカ
girl
ちゃ
are
んとは
incredible.
発想が本当
The
に
way
柔
you
らかい
think really is flexible.
私なんかもうおばさ
I'm
んだ
already
から
an old lady and my
頭が
mind
全然
doesn't
回
work
転し
that
ないのよ
fast.
今日の鍵の
That
選び
theory
シ
about the
ー
six characters
6文字
by
の
the
リケと
key
いう意味だ
signifying
という
six
推理は
characters
見事だ
to be removed was very interesting.
そう聞かされちゃったら
After hearing
もうそう
that,
に
I
しか
can
思えな
see
い
it
けれど
being any other way.
それまでは全
But
然そう
before
だと
then,
思わ
I
なかった
didn't
もん
think it
ね
was like that at
自分
all.
の頭の
It's
片手が嫌
it's
なのは
frustrating how thick-headed I
そ
am.
んなことないっ
That's
すよ
not
ローズお
true.
ばさんだって
You have a very
頭
flexible
十分柔
mind,
らかい
Auntie
し
Rosa.
その
That
黄金
home
の里っての
discovery
は
might be really
何
important
かの鍵
somewhere
になる
down
か
the
もしれない
line.
じゃないですか
とんでもない
Not at
カチカチ
all.
よ
My mind's very
私
stiff.
なんて
Until a
つい
few
この間
moments
まで
ago, I
は
was thinking of the
第一
first
の番とい
twilight
う
as a
のは
place,
黄金鏡までの道中
1/10
の
of the
10
way
分
to
の
the
1の
golden
場所だ
land.
とか思ってたんだから
なんすかそれ
What's
面
that?
白そうだから聞か
Sounds
せてくれませんか
interesting. Sounds interesting. Mind telling me about it?
だって
After
第
all,
一の番
in the
の前
line
の
before the first
黄金
twilight,
鏡へ
it
旅立
says,
つ道
it
と
says
書いてあるでし
you
ょ
must journey to the golden land,
そし
right?
て
Then
10日をか
the
けて
next
旅を
part
するわけ
describes
だ
a
から
journey that lasts
これはその
10 days.
旅の途中の
So
お
I
話
thought
なん
the
だろう
first
な
twilight would be a part of the way through that journey.
旅
Journey.
確
I
かに
see.
それで旅を
So
始め
you
る最初
start
の
the
一晩目
journey,
のキャン
and
プ
then
で
on the first twilight you set up camp and sacrifice the
なら
six.
その場所って
So I
どこだ
thought, where is that
スタート
place?
地点から
How
何
many
キロメート
kilometers from that starting
ル
point?
なんてね
Things like
内緒
that.
よ
Don't tell anyone this,
おばさ
okay?
んバカだから
I'm not very
黄金
clever
の
for
里の
so.
ことずっと
So for a
黄
long
金の
time
京
I
って
read
読んでた
home kanji as kyo, when it's probably
ほ
sato.
ら京って言うと京都みたいでしょ
And kyo reminds you of Kyoto, right? If it's often shortened to kyo.
だからお父さん
So
が
I
故郷
often
で
I
京都ま
thought
で
that the
の旅路の
10-day
最
trip
初の
might be
10分の
between
1の地
father's
点
home
に
and
何
Kyoto,
か秘密が
and
隠さ
there
れてるん
might
じゃ
be
ないかって
something
思って
hidden 1/10 of the way there.
いや
Are you kidding? That's a brilliant idea. The first twilight as the first stop on a 10-day journey.
そこの地
The name of that place must be the key.
それを知るにはスタ
For
ー
my
ト地点と
10-day
ゴール地
theory
点
to
がわ
work,
からない
you would
と
have
ね
to know both the start point and the end
スタート地
point.
点は分かってるの
I know that. I know the start point. I know the home father would call
お
beloved.
父様は少年
Father
時代
really
をとても遠方で過ごされ
did
たんだ
spend his youth a long way away. A long way away.
問題はゴールの黄金
But
期
the
ね
problem is the goal, the golden
一
land.
体どこのことなのか
What
しら
does that really
それが
mean?
分からなきゃ私
If we
の
don't
説明
know
さ
that, my theory gets us
長
nowhere.
いことここで行
I've
き詰
been
まってたん
stuck
だけ
at
ど
this spot for a long
今日の
time.
バトラ君たちの
But
推理を
after
聞いて
listening to your reasoning that
私の
today,
恥ずかしい
I've
勘違いだっ
theorized
たんだわって
what an
思い知った
embarrassing mistake I'm making.
それはそれで
No, I think that's still an interesting idea.
スタート
A start and a goal, a 10-day journey,
その
and the place reached after the first twilight.
案外
Believe it or not, I think you might solve it. You might solve this one easily,
もしお
Battle.
ばさんのヒントで
If you don't solve it with your auntie's hint,
半分でもいいから分けっこしてね
if you do solve it with your auntie's hint, share a little with me, okay? Even 5% would be
約
great.
束よ
Promise me? She gave me a wink and a smile, which almost made my heart jump a little, even though she was my aunt. Butler, non scoparti le zie, per favore. Non scoparti le zie, per favore, Butler. Lo so, I know the appeal of older women. Lo so, Butler. No, per favore. As I helped her wash the cos'è che sto dicendo? Stavo invertendo cups e coffee. The coffee cups. Ok. As I helped her wash the coffee cups, I kept pondering the epitaph riddle silently. Un secondo. After I finished helping Auntie Rosa and went into the corridor on my way to the bathroom, I saw Erika unlocking the door to her room on the way there.
あんたの部屋は
Oh,
2
your
階じゃな
room
か
is
っ
on
た
the second floor,
て
right?
っきり上に上がって
I was sure you'd gone upstairs and fallen asleep by now.
ちょっと探し物を
I
して
was
ま
just
して
searching for
ここに
something.
なら
I
あるの
thought
で
it
はな
might
い
be
かと思
here.
いまして
探し物
Searching for something. Erika unlocked the door and opened it. A dusty smell drifted out. It was the archive. The distance between the bookshelves was too small for this to be called a library room. This was obviously a room made for storing books, not reading them.
探し物ってのは本なのか
So, you're searching for a book.
本と言います
Not
か
necessarily a book, but, well,
資料です。
reference material.
どうしてもしたい
There's
調べ物があり
something
ま
I
して
simply have to look up.
碑文の謎に関する
You're
探
looking
し
for
物
something having to do with the epitaph
ま
riddle?
だ諦めてなかっ
Pretty
たとは
admirable
殊勝な
that you
ことだ
haven't given up yet.
200億の黄金は
I guess
魅力
20
か
billion yen is pretty enticing. I haven't given up either. Apparently, we are both bad at giving up.
まさか
You're
私
joking.
にとって
I'm only,
興
inter-
味があるのは
I'm
謎
only
だけ
interested in riddle solving.
黄金を求めるのは推理が正
I'm
しか
only
ったこと
looking
の
for
証
the
明が
goal
欲し
because
い
I
から
want
だけ
proof
です
that my reasoning was correct.
仮に見つけても
Even if I
猫
found
が
it, I
なんかし
wouldn't
ませんの
pocket
で
it for
ご安
myself,
心
so
を
don't worry. She immediately dismissed the idea, saying that she just liked solving riddles and had no interest at all in the gold. My first impression of her had been that she was a bit of a weird one, and it looked like I hadn't been wrong. Erika started searching for the book she was after, slowly going around the
碑文の
bookshelves.
謎解きなら
I'm also
俺
in the
もま
middle
だ
of
挑
trying
戦
to
中だ
solve the
ぜ
epitaph.
あそうそう
Oh yeah, just a second ago I heard something interesting from Auntie Rosa, which might be a hint about the first twilight. May I ask what it was? Erika asked this without stopping her search or even turning to face me. In the first line, before the first twilight, it says something like whoever obtains the key must do so and so, right? You who had laid upon the key must journey as follows to the Golden Land. Whoa, you've already got it memorized? Guess I shouldn't be surprised. What about that line? Right, must journey to the Golden Land, it says. Apparently, this made Auntie Rosa picture setting off on a journey from the beloved home of old to the Golden Land, a journey lasting until the 10th twilight. Or in other words, 10 days. Actually, I already noticed that myself. That place you reach on the first day of the 10-day journey, that's where you offer the sacrifice from. Yeah, that's exactly what Auntie Rosa thought of. So I think it's an interesting theory. The place you reach on the first day of a 10th day journey. That bit of land, or else a place's name might be the key. I've also been speculating that the name of a place might be the key. That's why I'm looking for a reference book. I want to turn this from speculation into certainty. What is it that you're looking for? Then Erika's hand suddenly stopped and she pulled it out. And then she dusted it off and finally looked at me and spoke. An atlas. Perfetto.